Hello gamers and fellow budding game designers, Dominic here for episode 2 of Designer's Playbook. This week I'll be looking at Dragon Age 2, a sequel I believe designed with accessibility in mind. So let's get right into it.
First things first, what is accessibility in games? Well, Oxford defines the word accessible as easily understood or appreciated. Or in the words of Mike Laidlaw, leading designer for Dragon Age 2, decisions that make the game more welcoming. The term welcoming is not used in the sense of dumbing down the gameplay, but rather to make it easier to understand, such as being able to enjoy the game without having to consult your manual each time you need to look at the skill tree. A perfect example of this is the redesign in the Dragon Age ability tree from the first to the second game. You might be looking at it saying, yeah, so why is that better? And to that I say, well, a few reasons. Essentially, it all comes down to the way the human mind processes information. We are extremely good at noticing pattern differences in the world around us. Don't believe me? Let's test that. Keep an eye on the screen and think about what's different between these 5 images. That took only 2 seconds, but I'm guessing you were able to keep a track of the triangle across most, if not all, 5 patterns. So why does it matter that our brains are so good at processing patterns? It matters because a game designer can leverage this quick processing to help you understand large pieces of information very quickly. Here's how it's done in Dragon Age 2. Abilities are displayed in separate pages, grouping them by types such as archery, two-handed weapons, or elemental. Each page has the relevant abilities grouped together by their relationship. Finally, and this is the clever part, simple shaped icons are given to each type of ability, like diamonds for activated abilities, or circle for passive abilities. These clear visual cues significantly cut down on the time it takes you to understand each ability and its relationship to the others. For example, looking at this layout, you can quickly see that the final ability gives you a passive upgrade to both types of spells. Now let's compare this to the Dragon Age 1 ability tree. I'm guessing that the identical grid formation isn't too helpful at a glance. Or compare that to a skill tree from another game. So which of these do you think people find more welcoming? The designers at Dragon Age 2 didn't remove gameplay choices, they just redesigned the way they were presented to the player. For my main character, I have 90 possible choices I can make. And additionally, you also have party members who have their own separate upgrades for you to choose. Therefore, being able to quickly process patterns and understand relationships is very helpful when you potentially have to look through 90 plus choices each time you level up. So moving on to one of the other significant design changes implemented in Dragon Age 2, the reworking of the combat system. This again was done to create a more welcoming and satisfying game experience. In a Gama Sutra article with J.E. Sawyer, director at Obsidian Entertainment, he discussed the 5 hard lessons of RPG design. He stated mechanical chaos is frustrating to players. Mechanical chaos is randomization as a means to resolve gameplay conflict. Or in other words, back in the day when RPGs were tabletop games, a roll of the dice was the only way to figure out if your attack was successful or not. The problem is that when this gameplay style is brought into video games, it doesn't make sense. What the player sees is a character standing in front of an enemy and randomly missing. What they don't see is the invisible dice roll taking place in the code that decides whether or not you hit your target. This type of gameplay just isn't satisfying for most people, and that is why it was redesigned in Dragon Age 2. In Dragon Age 2, the developers have moved to a real-time combat system where the actions on the screen correspond with the controls of the player and not an invisible dice roll. I felt this created a much more enjoyable gameplay experience because my results were a product of my actions. These 2 design decisions made Dragon Age 2 feel a lot more fun from the get-go. However, there is one major glaring issue that really lets the game down. That is, the game environments are reused way too much throughout the story. The game takes place over a single city called Kirkwall. The city is broken up into areas that you can explore during the day and night. The day and night cycle serves little purpose but to reuse the city streets as combat areas that are inhabited by bandits during the night. There is essentially only 3 areas outside the city, and all of which follow linear pathways restricting any sense of exploration. The problem here is that it is a real struggle to try and stay interested after seeing each area 20 times over. There is a simple explanation for this loss of interest, and it can be found in the way psychologists measure attention in babies. A baby cannot tell you if he or she finds something interesting, so psychologists have noticed that babies do other things to show their interest, such as preferential looking, where a baby will look at something that she finds more interesting. However, after repeated exposure to the same stimulus, the baby will not be as interested and start to look away. That is called habituation. Everyone habituates, or becomes less interested in an object after they have seen it for a while. While of course an adult can hold their attention much longer than a baby, the same principle still applies. This is the problem with the environments in Dragon Age 2. You'll have seen them so much by the 20th or 30th hour, you'll have lost almost all interest in them. The result is that the story keeps you playing, but it is hampered without the continued sense of exploration. Dragon Age 2 makes an attempt to hide this obvious repetition by sectioning off parts of the outdoor areas and tunnels for different missions, but the effect is obvious and does little to hide the problem. Overall, Dragon Age 2 does do a lot of things right to welcome new and old players, but the reused environments are a real problem. If I had more time, there are also some really interesting and thought-provoking metaphors employed throughout the narrative, but I'll leave that for you to enjoy and seek out.
That brings me to the end of this episode, so please like it and subscribe if you enjoyed the show. Remember to also leave your comments and your own design ideas in the comments section below. I'm Dominic, I'll see you all in about 2 weeks depending on my study load. Thanks for watching.